Cleopatra was the ancient world's greatest queen. We still remember her as the powerful woman who seduced Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. But she wasn't the only queen to bear that name.
Cleopatra.
A century before, there lived another Cleopatra. An ambitious woman who waged war on her brother and her daughter.
So there was always jealousy between them, there was always friction and rivalry.
They were rivals for power. They hated each other as much as we can say.
Incest, mutilation, murder. A tale so grotesque and appalling, it almost seems invented. Archaeologists have uncovered a unique history, sunken in the murky waters and carved on the walls of magnificent temples.
This peaceful seeming relief obscures anger, frustration, and virtually deadly conflict.
This is the story of a family torn apart by a lust for power. But as Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra II saved her dynasty from destruction. She wielded great power and would do anything to keep it. Egypt, the 2nd century BC. Centuries have passed since the nation's golden age, the glorious new kingdom of Tutankhamun and Ramesses, who ruled from the ancient capital of Luxor. Then, Egypt was the greatest nation in the world. But by the 2nd century BC, it's no longer a superpower. And its rulers now are not Egyptian, they're Greek. In this Greek-led Egypt, a woman called Cleopatra II will come to power. For decades, she'll rule alongside her brothers, and the conflict between them will tear the country apart. These dramatic events unfolded not in Luxor, but far to the north on Egypt's Mediterranean coast. With its busy harbor and modern high-rise buildings, Alexandria today looks much like any Egyptian port. But this was once a Greek city, the greatest in the ancient world, founded by a king of kings, Alexander the Great. In 332 BC, Alexander takes control of Egypt before leaving to pursue other conquests. Some years later, Alexander dies, and his generals divide his empire between them. Egypt and its new capital, Alexandria, fall into the hands of a man named Ptolemy, one of Alexander's greatest generals. For nearly 300 years, he and his descendants will rule Egypt. Every one of these kings will bear the name Ptolemy.
When the Ptolemaic rulers came to Egypt, they faced the immense task of creating an identity for their country, because they were of Macedonian Greek origin. So they needed to be rulers for both the Greek-speaking population and the Egyptian population.
Under the Ptolemies, Alexandria becomes the Mediterranean's most prosperous port, carrying on lucrative trade with India and Arabia. The wealth of the East pours into Alexandria's markets.
Alexandria in itself, we have three main groups and three main population groups. Number one, we have the Greeks who had recently arrived since the conquest of Alexander. Number two, we have a prominent Egyptian population within the city. And number three, we have a Jewish population within the city.
Though the Greeks make up less than a third of Egypt's population, they're the ones who profit most from the booming economy. But this prosperous land is about to descend into chaos. In 180 BC, King Ptolemy V dies, and his son Ptolemy VI takes over. As the eldest boy, he's first in line for the throne. And when he marries, he'll remain the senior monarch. Egypt hasn't seen sole rule by a woman for 1,000 years.
When Ptolemy VI becomes king, he's too young to rule, and thus his mother steps in as regent, and later she appoints 2 advisors to continue the regency until Ptolemy VI comes of age.
He's one of 3 royal children. He has an older sister, Cleopatra, and a younger brother, also called Ptolemy, but better known by his nickname, Fiscon. When the eldest Ptolemy is around 11 years old, the regents decide it's time for him to marry. He's now old enough to be accepted as king. But he needs a queen.
Everything in the Egyptian world was based on dualism. So it was very important in the eyes of Egyptians to have a male and a female principle on the throne. It was like a kind of yin and yang, I suppose. So the presence of a woman is fundamental to the running of Egypt.
In the town of Edfu in southern Egypt, there stands a colossal monument, the Temple of Horus. In the mysterious inner sanctum, a model boat represents the sun god's celestial journey. Ptolemy VI appears on the walls nearby. He offers a gift of oil to Horus, the hawk-headed sky god, and the powerful goddess Hathor. Behind him stands his queen, and the hieroglyphs leave no doubt as to her identity. This is Cleopatra II, daughter of Ptolemy V. The king has married his own sister. For the Ptolemies, incest is a time-honored tradition.
When we, in the modern world, look at Ptolemaic incest, we have a bit of shock and we have a bit of apprehension, and it's almost a bit of disbelief in how we think about it. With this practice of royal incest, they were closing dynastic loops. They were ensuring the continuity and the purity of Ptolemaic bloodlines, and therefore they were keeping royalty well within the family.
Marrying between royal family, next of kin or close kin, was acceptable both in ancient Egypt and in Persia. It wasn't a breach of social norm. To be a king of Egypt is to be a god on earth.
The Egyptian gods Isis and Osiris are siblings who marry one another. This helps the Ptolemies justify the incest.
So this was also their way of elevating themselves into another level, that they are moving from being bare humans into being divine entities as well. So marrying from their family provided them with this extra layer of divinity.
Still just 10 years old, Cleopatra is now Queen of Egypt. She's married to and rules alongside her brother, the Pharaoh. But their younger brother, Fiscon, is not happy at being sidelined. He believes he has just as much claim to the throne. Even as a youth, Fiscon is shrewd and cunning. Someday, he'll make a play for power. The Serapeum stands overlooking Alexandria. This was once a magnificent temple dedicated to the god Serapis. A blend of Greek and Egyptian deities, Serapis signifies the merging of two cultures. He also protects the thriving city ruled by Ptolemy and Cleopatra. For the first 5 years of their marriage, Egypt is at peace. The nation is rich, but it's not a great military power. These limitations will soon be exposed. In 170 BC, war breaks out. Antiochus IV, king of the powerful Seleucid Empire, invades Egypt from modern Syria. He leads a formidable and well-prepared army. Which is far stronger than Ptolemy VI.
Ptolemy VI sends out the Egyptian forces against the Seleucids. They are met and defeated rather quickly by Antiochus IV, who then marches on Alexandria.
With his army defeated, Ptolemy's options are limited. But strangely enough, so are Antiochus's. As a foreign king, he won't easily be accepted.
Ptolemy VI apparently goes out to meet Antiochus IV and reaches a settlement whereby he essentially becomes a vassal of the Seleucid state.
Back in Alexandria, the people are far from happy. They have no desire to be dominated by Antiochus, with Ptolemy as his puppet king. There's a tempting opportunity for someone else. Now older, Fiscon is assertive and ambitious. A royal son, he feels he has a right to power. And the people's anger strengthens his position.
We can't go back in time and meet either Ptolemy VI or Ptolemy VIII Fiscon, but from the ancient sources, it seems that they had very different personalities. Ptolemy VI, a competent and serious ruler; Fiscon, an indulgent, cruel, and conniving character.
But there's a third player in this game of chess. The queen, Cleopatra. She knows of Fiscon's ambition and worries about how to deal with him. Then, her worst fears are confirmed. The people of Alexandria have made Fiscon their ruler, King Ptolemy VIII. Egypt now has two rival brother kings. This threatens to tear Cleopatra's family and the country apart.
So in the summer of 169 BC, it seems like Egypt is carved into two. On the one hand, we have Ptolemy VI in Memphis, supported by Antiochus IV. On the other hand, we have Alexandria had declared Ptolemy VIII its own king. So it seems as if Egypt is going to fall apart at the seams, and it seems as if we are going to have this rivalry between Ptolemy VI and Ptolemy VIII and their supporters in both parts of the country.
Amid the turmoil and confusion, ordinary Egyptians are losing faith in the monarchy. Cleopatra must regain their confidence. The writings of the prophet Hor, dating from this time, suggest that the queen tried to link herself to Egypt's greatest goddess, Isis.
Cleopatra, she was Greek but equally purely Egyptian too, born and bred in Egypt. So she was quite familiar with the Egyptian local traditions. Usually Isis was referred to from her motherhood perspective. She was a protective goddess.
Cleopatra's connection with the goddess makes her popular with the Egyptian people and a political force to be reckoned with.
She was equally familiar with the best means to reach out to people's hearts as well as minds. It's also a reflection of how politically attuned she was.
With her dynasty on the brink of civil war, she puts her influence to work. Over a century later, the Roman historian Livy paid tribute to Cleopatra's diplomatic skills.
Their sister greatly promoted the negotiation, both by her advice and entreaties.
I think Cleopatra II found a very important niche for herself in the role of playing the reconciliation figure, the reconciler between the two brothers. I think she was able to see herself as this peacemaker. She must have been a very skilled woman to have understood the failures and strengths of her brothers to be able to bring them back to some kind of unity.
Ptolemy VI agrees to share power with his younger brother. The three siblings are now joint rulers of Egypt. Antiochus IV reacts quickly and threatens to capture Alexandria. But he is scared away by the greatest power in the Mediterranean, Rome.
Republican Rome is the rising star of the Mediterranean. As Egypt, Greece, and the Seleucid Empire go into decline, Rome steps into that gap. For the Roman Republic, Egypt is important both for its role in international trade, as well as the supply of gold and also grain. Egypt's agricultural wealth and the annual flooding of the Nile means that it will become the breadbasket of ancient Rome.
Rome wants a peaceful Egypt and a steady food supply. If the Ptolemies can deliver this, Rome will support them. For a few years, the three siblings rule jointly. As co-ruler, Fiscon indulges his taste for the high life. But having tasted power, he is not content to share it.
If you have three siblings ruling together and all three are very dominant, especially the two men, obviously it was clear that this situation could not continue. So Fiscon was keen on ruling all by himself.
And in 164 BC, he gets his chance. A rebellion breaks out in a remote part of Egypt. Ptolemy VI leaves Alexandria to put it down. Fiscon quickly takes advantage of Cleopatra's isolation. She has worked hard to keep the peace, but her brother's latest actions catch her off guard. Fiscon has staged a sudden and dramatic coup, expelling his siblings from power. He is now Egypt's sole king. Though enraged at her brother's treachery, Cleopatra is powerless to stop him. Now, Fiscon ruthlessly consolidates his power.
Ptolemy VIII promptly rids himself of the former supporters Ptolemy VI, the Jewish mercenaries who are resident in the city, and the intellectual elite of Alexandria who are either exiled or banished.
But the coup will be short-lived. Fiscon tries to get the Roman Senate on his side, but they refuse to support him. Instead, Rome sends an ambassador to oversee another reconciliation between Fiscon and his siblings. Ptolemy and Cleopatra return as rulers of Egypt, but they know Fiscon can't be trusted. They need to get him out of Egypt, so they offer him rule of a distant colony. Cyrene lies some 500 miles to the west. Today, it's part of Libya. Installed there as ruler, Fiscon is out of harm's way. For now. Despite years of infighting, somehow the Ptolemaic dynasty is still intact. Cleopatra and Ptolemy can now get on with ruling the land and perpetuating their family's rule. They have a son named Ptolemaic Philopator, the new beloved of his father. They call their daughter Cleopatra after her mother. She'll be remembered as Cleopatra III.
The couple were married for over 10 years by this point. Perhaps I think Cleopatra II would have been quite happy with how Ptolemy VI handled himself, because he was making the right international moves to re-establish Ptolemaic Egypt as a Mediterranean power.
But he has unfinished business with the Seleucid Empire. The Seleucids hold Kole, Syria, an Egyptian territory, and in 145 BC, Ptolemy tries to reclaim it. As the historian Josephus relates, this would be a fatal decision.
It happened in the time of the battle that Ptolemy's horse, upon hearing the noise of an elephant, cast him off his back and threw him on the ground. His enemies fell upon him and gave him many wounds upon his head. On the 5th day, he died.
The news of Ptolemy's death hits Cleopatra hard. In Alexandria, she holds a ritual of lamentation.
And she was married to her full brother in order to strengthen the dynasty. Stayed loyal to him from the time she married him, so it seemed to have been a dynastic alliance, but it seemed to have been a good alliance.
With her husband gone after 30 years of marriage, Cleopatra must secure her future. Somehow, she must hold on to power. It's the only way to protect her son, Ptolemaic. He's the legitimate heir, and he's nearly old enough to be king. But a faction within Alexandria has another candidate in mind.
When it comes to Alexandrian politics, the public are ever present. They act like another character in the drama, if you like. Constantly in the Roman sources, Roman historians refer to the Alexandrian mob, and I think that's exactly how we should see them, almost like, you know, pitchfork-wielding and firebrand-wielding individuals. They are vocal, they have their say. They are kingmakers and king-breakers.
Fiscon still has many supporters in Alexandria. They send word to Cyrene, inviting him to return and claim the throne. It's the moment he's been waiting for. He rushes back to Alexandria. And yet again, he claims the throne of Egypt. Now, only Cleopatra's son can challenge him.
Ptolemaic Philopator is perhaps Fiscon's worst nightmare, because as long as Ptolemaic Philopator is around, this means that there is a legitimate rival focus of support against Ptolemy VIII. It's an alternative on the throne.
Fiscon resolves to deal with the boy. But only when the time is right. In the meantime, he needs a queen.
I don't think that Ptolemy VIII, when he seizes the throne, could have done without Cleopatra II. We know that she was actually very popular with the populace, but in particular in Alexandria. So first of all, she was a link to continuity that Fiscon really needed to have there. He needed Cleopatra II on his side in order for his new regime to work. I think getting rid of Cleopatra II would have been really detrimental to that.
Cleopatra.
Whatever Cleopatra's personal feelings about Fiscon, she has little choice. Marrying him is her only way to stay on as queen.
The draw to marrying her younger brother, Fiscon, it was returning to this normality, this idea of dualism. And certainly at that time, Ptolemy VIII was the most powerful male of the line, and Cleopatra was the most powerful female. Naturally, they needed to be together.
The Roman historian Justin tells us that Fiscon threw a lavish party to celebrate the marriage. The scene of revelry makes what happens next all the more horrific.
Fiscon, perhaps the word that comes to mind when we think of him most is ruthlessness. He has this cold side to him. He has a vindictive streak. There is a maliciousness, perhaps there is a malevolence in Ptolemy VIII.
Cleopatra may hope that marrying Fiscon will protect her son, but if so, she's tragically mistaken. For kings to eliminate rivals is common practice. But in a cruel and sickening twist, Cleopatra must now sleep with her son's murderer.
By all accounts, it's safe to say that Fiscon intended to rule Alexandria through a campaign of fear. There's a story in the third book of the Maccabees that's attributed to Ptolemy VIII that he encircled a group of rebellious Jews with elephants and then ordered them to be trampled to death in this horrifically grotesque public display. So Ptolemy, by all accounts, seems to use direct force, intimidation, violence, and the ostentatious display thereof as a means of securing his power in Alexandria.
Violent and ostentatious he may be, but Fiscon is also a clever politician. He knows he needs to win the hearts and minds of ordinary Egyptians. Clues to how he did this are preserved here at the Temple of Horus in Edfu. In the courtyard, 2 falcons guard the entrance to the inner temple. They represent the sky god Horus, who protects Egypt's royalty. And on the temple walls, Fiscon presents himself as a king worthy of protection. In this magnificent relief, Ptolemy VIII, Fiscon, appears as a mighty pharaoh, wearing the crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt. The goddesses Wadjet and Nekbet stand at either side, conferring divine kingship on the pharaoh. In other temple reliefs, Fiscon appears alongside his wife. Here, he and Cleopatra face Thoth, the moon god with the head of an ibis.
When looking at the temple reliefs, particularly of Ptolemy VIII and Cleopatra II, and seeing the peaceful relationship they've got, this was not the reality of things. We need to remember whatever exists on the temple had to conform with the religious traditions. It had to conform with the political system that existed. In reality, Ptolemy VIII and Cleopatra II, there was so much tension between them, which is totally different than what we see on the temple.
A young boy also appears in the temple scene. His presence signals that, however troubled their relationship, the king and queen did conceive a child. Around the time of her husband's coronation, Cleopatra gives birth to a son. He's named Memphites. Fiscon now has a legitimate heir. And Cleopatra has shored up her own position as queen.
Queens were prominent within the Ptolemaic world because they were the dynastic womb. It was through their children, through their reproductive capacity, that the next link in the dynastic chain was established. Because this was not only their way of ensuring the continuity of their bloodline, but it was also their way of securing their own position at court.
Marriage to Fiscon is a necessary evil for Cleopatra II, but she has proven herself a born survivor. She's already buried one husband and a son, and despite everything, she's managed to maintain her position as the queen, Egypt's most powerful woman. But then, a new and formidable rival emerges, her own daughter. Northeast of Alexandria lies the town of Abu Qir and its tranquil bay. Secrets lie hidden in these waters, and archaeologist Frank Gaudio has been exploring them for over 20 years.
In 2001, we could find 7 kilometers away from the present coast of Egypt, a vast area with a lot of archaeological remains.
Frank had discovered a lost city, the ancient port city of Thonis Heraklion, frequently visited by the Ptolemies. In the 2nd century BC, earthquakes and floods struck the area. Much of the port city sank into the sea. For the scientists, it was an archaeological dream, an underwater Pompeii, untouched for centuries. Treasures coalesced in the murky depths, the faces of gods and kings. And then, a stunning find, a black granite statue of a royal female dressed as the goddess Isis. Archaeologists dubbed her the Dark Queen.
Most of the time, when we are discovering a statue, it is broken in several pieces. It was the case of that Black Queen. We first discovered the bust, then the head, the legs, and we could reconstitute that beautiful Black Queen. Who is she?
The team carefully raised the pieces to the surface and sent the statue to the Alexandria National Museum. Only then, based on similar statues, were they able to identify the Dark Queen. She's Cleopatra III, the daughter of Cleopatra II and Ptolemy VI. The existence of this magnificent statue shows she became just as powerful as her mother. She too was a queen, but her reign began in sinister and horrific circumstances. And central to this is Fiscon's ambition. A few years have passed since he married his sister wife, Cleopatra II. She's now past childbearing age. Meanwhile, her daughter has grown up, and Fiscon takes notice. The young Cleopatra becomes the object of her uncle's lust.
The sources we have dealing with Cleopatra III's relationship with Fiscon are quite complex and very often contradictory. In fact, the same source, Justin, gives us two very different accounts. When he begins to talk of her reign, he very much focuses on the idea that what we're dealing with here is a rape, that Cleopatra III, a young woman, is raped by her uncle, becomes pregnant by him. But in the same text, as Justin sums up Cleopatra III's life, he takes a completely different stand and he says, oh, Cleopatra was a manipulative woman and she maneuvered her uncle into her bed. So it's very difficult to get a clear picture on what happens there.
What happens next will cause even more turmoil. The king makes his niece his second wife. She has little choice but to acquiesce. But Fiscon is still married to Cleopatra II. Egypt now has two queens, and for the older one, it's a devastating outcome.
Cleopatra II was a very powerful queen. Relations with her brother husband were strained. Now, it must have come as a shock that he married her daughter. That meant that she lost some power. Legally, Cleopatra III had the same status as Cleopatra II. They were both called Basilissa, Greek for queen. So it must have been a very difficult relationship between the two women.
But Cleopatra II still has one card left to play. Some years later, Memphites, her son with Fiscon, turns 12. He's now at the age when the Egyptian people will accept him as king. Cleopatra wants to hold on to power at all costs. Her best way to achieve this? To put her son on the throne. But it's a tight window of opportunity, because Fiscon now has two sons with Cleopatra III. Soon, they too will be old enough to challenge for the kingship.
Ptolemy VIII Fiscon had spent a great deal of time trying to undermine the sources of support for Cleopatra II. But Cleopatra II certainly wasn't down and out, and despite Fiscon's best efforts, she was still very much a force to be reckoned with in Alexandria.
Fiscon's brutal actions have alienated many Alexandrians. Cleopatra is now their preferred monarch. In 132 BC, she strikes a sudden blow, catching Fiscon off guard.
With her domestic support in Alexandria and in the north of Egypt, seems to incite the Alexandrian mob against Fiscon. There's an attack on the palace. As a result of this, Fiscon and Cleopatra III then flee to Cyprus.
Exiled in Cyprus, Fiscon ponders his next move. He's enraged at being ousted, but something else causes him even more concern. He knows his sister will now try to install their son Memphites as the new king. He must act quickly. Somehow, Fiscon manages to entice Memphites to come and join him in Cyprus.
It's really hard to know what was going through Fiscon's head at the time Memphites was brought over to Cyprus. Once Cleopatra II had seized control in Alexandria, the only card Ptolemy VIII had to play was his son.
Fiscon claims that Memphites has turned his back on his mother and now supports him. It's almost certainly a lie, but it draws an immediate reaction from Cleopatra. She takes power in her own right as sole ruler of Egypt.
We need to remember that by the time that Cleopatra have become a royal queen or ruling Egypt, this was quite unique in the history of ancient societies, even in the history of ancient Egypt.
Cleopatra's achievement can't be understated. She's Egypt's first sole female ruler in 1,000 years. She and Fiscon have been playing a tense game of political tit-for-tat. It's impossible to say who will come out on top. But news of Cleopatra's latest move sends the exiled king into a frenzy. He gives orders for Memphites, his own son, to be murdered, and then has the body dismembered. The head, feet, and hands are cut off and placed into a chest. He orders his soldiers to bring the chest to Alexandria and place it outside the palace gates on the night before his sister's birthday.
It's almost impossible to imagine the grief that Cleopatra II would have experienced upon receiving the dismembered parts of her own son.
For Cleopatra II, there's nothing more to say. She plunges into all-out war with Fiscon and Cleopatra III. For years, the bloody war drags on. Neither side can win it, and neither side can rule Egypt without the other. It's a stalemate.
As subsequent events demonstrate, Cleopatra II had no choice but to make peace with the murderer of her own son.
On the banks of the Nile, over 500 miles south of Alexandria, stand the ruins of Kom-Ombo Temple. Much of the temple dates from the reign of Fiscon. Though battered by earthquakes and centuries of erosion, it's still partly intact, and it holds a clue to how the three monarchs resolved their bitter conflict.
Walking through the beautiful hypostyle hall of Kom-Ombo Temple, it's striking to turn a corner and see this completely peaceful seeming relief of Fiscon, Cleopatra II, and Cleopatra III. And they're all there together as if a happy family making an offering to the god Horus. And you know from historical texts that this obscures anger, frustration, and virtually deadly conflict between a brother, a sister, and a daughter.
This temple image may be good PR, but it also signals the political reality. In 124 BC, after 8 years of inconclusive war, the three rulers decide to settle their differences. But Egypt is on its knees. Years of war and corruption have taken their toll. To signal that the war is over, the three rulers issue an official proclamation known as the Amnesty Decree.
The Amnesty Decree of 118 BC is, by all accounts, an attempt at reconciliation between this very troubled royal triangle, and Cleopatra II seems to emerge fairly well out of this.
Cleopatra II is instrumental in drafting this momentous ruling. The decree offers the people of Egypt a blank slate. All crimes committed during the war will be forgotten, and everyone can join in rebuilding the nation.
Besides simply creating a peace and creating a blank slate in Egypt at the time, it seems by all accounts that Cleopatra II was working to appease in various corners of the country.
Cleopatra's tactics succeed, and the country begins to recover. Once again, she has brought peace to Egypt, and she saved her dynasty from destruction.
She guided the Ptolemaic dynasty through some of its most troubling times. At several points as Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra II reconciles opposing, warring factions in the Ptolemaic court. She helps keep that dynasty going.
Fiscon has also proven himself a skillful politician, though some of his tactics are brutal and repugnant. 2 years after the Amnesty Decree, his long life of self-indulgence finally catches up with him. Fiscon will be remembered as a tyrant and a murderer, one of the darkest characters ever to sit on Egypt's throne. Cleopatra II survives him. If her goal was to outlive her nemesis, she succeeded.
I would say that Cleopatra II is one of the most important women in the ancient world. And in many respects, I think she eclipses even the great Cleopatra VII. I think she was a born survivor. She overcame male oppression and the prejudice of a patriarchal society to secure the throne first for herself and then for initially at least her offspring. And even though, you know, the road was not a straight one for Cleopatra II, I think she still relished every part of that journey.
A few months after Fiscon, Cleopatra II also dies.
If we look at the life of Cleopatra II, I think that we see all of the dynamism, all the variety of queenship, both in Egypt and elsewhere. So we see Cleopatra II as the culmination of a process of female power, of the gradual involvement of queens like her in the affairs of the court, in the affairs of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the gradual evolution of female influence that occurred over centuries.
Cleopatra III does not mourn her mother's passing. There's never been any love lost between them. But she does follow the ground her mother broke, and she now has what she's been waiting for: sole rule over all of Egypt.
Cleopatra III never shied away from taking power, and the future would show that. So she was keen on having more power, and she tried everything to preserve it.
The Temple of Hathor stands deep in the Theban necropolis, Egypt's ancient cemetery. The Ptolemies built and decorated this sanctuary. Exquisite reliefs cover the temple's inner walls. But the most intriguing of all adorns a side chamber called the birth house. Here, Cleopatra III portrays herself offering to the gods.
We see her taking precedence over her son, the pharaoh, Ptolemy IX, who stands behind her in second place, in other words. So this is unprecedented. That goes against the whole laws of Egyptian nature. She was an absolute mastermind of politics, of economics, and of warfare as well. And she dominated the Hellenistic world.
Cleopatra III emerges to become Egypt's supreme ruler. It's a position of unrivaled power, forged in the bitterness and hostility that consumed her dynasty for so many years. Like her mother, she'll be remembered as one of Egypt's toughest and most determined queens. Together, they blazed a trail for their illustrious successor, the most famous Cleopatra of all.